Night of the Living Dead came out something like 6 decades ago, 1968. It centers on a number of survivors that huddle together in the middle of nowhere in an abandoned farmhouse as they are surrounded by hordes of zombies in what is often considered to be the quintessential zombie film ever made. George A. Romero, let's go. So I chose this movie to be the next part of my 52-week horror movie challenge under the prompt to find a movie that is both low budget but big box office return. Now, when you look at the history of independent films that have been commercially successful, the most successful would probably be the Blair Witch Project. I mean, that's pretty much uncontested. However, I have been trying to keep this series to movies that I've never seen before, and I didn't see a lot of the Romero zombie films, so I stuck with his first feature-length film. We're talking Night of the Living Dead. So again, the movie came out in 1968, but the biggest thing about it is that when it was first released, it received a ton of hate, even from Roger Ebert himself, primarily because of shock value alone. Now, this was something that nobody was anticipating in the 60s, because in the 60s, the horror genre was very different. The target audience was often younger people. Like, there was a lot fewer restrictions for people to be able to get into a theater, because what they would watch on screen wouldn't ever really be too terrible. That is, until the Night of the Living Dead, or at least this was one of the few that basically prompted theaters to heighten security on allowing certain people in and out. Because this movie was not for kids, obviously. Nobody was prepared for how brutal it was. In fact, some of the biggest complaints critically was how brutal it really was. People were not expecting this. It was, in every sense of the word, bonkers. It changed the game for zombie films, and it changed the game for horror. Before Romero took the wheel, zombies existed. They did. They just did. I mean, Frankenstein's a zombie, technically speaking. However, they were always very different than what you know today. Usually, they were conjured up by some kind of master under the idea of having them be slaves, right? The only thing that really made them off-putting originally was that there were always these people basically in a trance, right? They wouldn't react to anything or anybody. They were kind of spooky in that way. The zombies that you know and love today, we're talking about those scary people, the undead, those that eat people, those that bite, turns contagious and turns people into other zombies and turns into a widespread epidemic, an apocalypse of sorts. That is all thanks to George A. Romero. So you gotta appreciate the historical relevance of what this movie is and what it created for the horror genre, for the zombie genre, everything. This movie also surprised me in a lot of different ways that I didn't even think was remotely possible. For instance, the zombies can kind of think a little bit. They can use their brain. That is not normal to me when it comes down to zombie movies. For instance, when they are unable to get to the girl who is locked in the car, they immediately pick up a brick on the ground and they smash in the window. So they are able to use weapons in this film. I have never seen zombies use weapons before. They also do run in the movie. Now, my understanding of zombies, especially Romero's zombies, is that they don't run and they don't sprint. I will say that they don't sprint in this movie, but they can run short distances, almost like a lunge at a victim. They can do that. I thought that that was interesting. Another element of historical significance in this film was that it is one of the first movies to present a black man as the main character. I thought that that was pretty cool, and he did a really good job in this as well. And I'll be honest, when I first popped the movie in, I will tell you what I was expecting. Something slow, something bland, something boring. However, I was shocked beyond disbelief to see that this movie is pretty much non-stop action thrills. Now, that obviously looks a lot different in the 60s than it does today, obviously, but it still is as effective as certain movies that come out right now that are really, really exciting. Right from the get-go, when the girl is attacked by the zombie, she starts running and she ends up at that farmhouse. And while there are elements here and there that are slightly slower, it works extremely well because of how tense it is and how dramatic the dialogue can be at times. I was just impressed with the pacing of the film in general. Another shock to the system for me when I watched this movie was the creation of the zombies. I was wondering if they would even explain what made the zombies pop up, or if it would just leave that as a question that you can interpret for yourself. And they actually do answer that question in this film. They basically say, space dust. there is some radiation that has fallen from a failed shuttle launch or something like that, and the radiation from space had gone into, I guess, the Earth or whatever, and had reanimated corpses, causing them to have cannibalistic tendencies to attack. Which, again, yet another surprise to me was how nobody really knows what zombies are, right? At least not like this, because Romero, we already talked about, he created zombies that act like this, the modern zombie. So people in this movie don't know what the modern zombie is. They just think that they are all being attacked around the globe, really, by mass murderers that just like to eat people for some reason. It isn't until later that you realize that, oh, they are reanimated corpses. That's terrifying. How are we supposed to kill what's already dead? I love that about this movie, because for the first time, we're not just watching a zombie movie. I mean, we are, because we already know what it is. It's Night of the Living Dead. It's about zombies. But while you watch it, you kind of forget that. And then you kind of discover along with them that these are zombies. This is terrifying. What do we do? Now, if you're just looking at technical aspects, I do believe that this film was shot and edited incredibly well, especially when it comes down to the fact that, one, it is an independent, low-budget film, and two, it's a directorial debut. Usually when it comes down to those two things combined, you're gonna watch a movie that feels kind of amateur. That is ultimately what I was expecting, knowing that this was a directorial debut, but there was a lot of shots that were kind of iconic in their own right. This is a very confined space movie. It's a one-location thriller. It's just one house. But the way that Romero was able to utilize film language and camera angles, he really does do a great job to his advantage, making this movie stand out as phenomenal. Just in the way that it looks, the way that it's paced, the tension, everything. Now, if I had a gripe in this film, and I do have a gripe, it is an aesthetic gripe, mostly because everything since this movie that I've seen, zombies are decomposing. Zombies are half skeletons. Zombies are monsters, right? And the zombies in this film are fresh, right? They look like they just died 20 minutes ago and are attacking now. They might be a little bit pale, which is kind of hard to see in black and white, and they have some torn clothing. Sometimes, not everybody has torn clothing, but almost everybody looks like they just died. They haven't been dead for a very long time. And I think that the movie does try to explain this away by saying that the zombies aren't coming out of the ground from their grave site. Instead, these are people that are unburied, meaning they are fresh. I thought that that was an interesting way to put it. Though some people are slightly decomposing. We're talking about slight makeup here and there where you might see some scratches and stuff, and that's about it. That's the zombie of the movie. It's hard for me to take that seriously when we have so many other zombie movies out there that do it technically better. Even The Walking Dead, way better when it comes down to believable zombies. At least aesthetically. I did, though, find it interesting that the blood in the film was chocolate syrup. Hey, can't really tell when it's black and white. In the grand scheme of things, that was my biggest and only complaint about the movie. I mean, in terms of everything else, this is a simple, effective horror film that changed the way that we saw horror films, and changed the way that we saw zombie films. It is everything that everybody has ever said that it is, and more. Again, I might have the one gripe in terms of visuals, in terms of how the zombies look, but when you're watching, it's not that big of a deal. My end score for the film is 83 out of 100 possible stars. That is a B+ letter grade. No, I don't have it up there in the 90s and the 100%ers, because I do think that's imperfect. It's incredibly entertaining and surprising in so many different ways, but it's also slightly aged, and there's no way to look at it any other way. I have mad respect for it, and especially where it came from and what it has done to the world of horror, but it is not a perfect film. It's just a very, very good, seminal zombie film. Take that as you will. Guys, leave your thoughts about Night of the Living Dead in the comment section down below. What is your favorite zombie movie? And as for YouTube, you guys know what to do. Hit the like, subscribe button, and bell to be notified when I come out with my next review for the 52-week horror movie challenge, or whatever the heck I review next. And until that day comes, peace out.